I want to let you know because I know you've followed New Jack. You've been a fan of him for a while. So why don't you tell me what did you think when you first heard this news, and tell us a little bit about New Jack for those who might not be familiar.
So I'll tell you the best description that I've ever heard of New Jack from actually my brother. We Me and my brother watched wrestling growing up. Always did. Wrestling was big, really prominent in my house. As I'm sure I've said this many, many times. So we were pretty much raised on it. ECW was pretty much the new kid on the block, probably the redhead stepchild on the block that everyone was interested in, but really kind of pushed it away. First match we saw from I remember distinctly was Psycho Sid wrestling someone, and it was a power bomb through like 4 to 5 different tables. And since then we were hooked. Then one day we're watching this guy, and all I hear is my brother in the living room, like, "Oh my god, what is he doing? Like, he just stabbed a guy with a fork." And like, I come running in, and I'm like, "Who is this dude?" And neither one of us knew his name at the time. But and then like the next show came on, and you heard that NWA track pop up, and you knew who it was. New Jack. New Jack was one of those guys who a lot like Sandman, in my opinion, who really had didn't have much wrestling talent, but you remember Sandman because he came out to enter Sandman. That's why you paid attention to Sandman. Sandman came out, smashed a beer over his head, and hit motherfuckers with kendo sticks. That's why you remember Sandman. You remember New Jack because he didn't give a damn. He did not care. He didn't. He told you what he thought. He told you what he was going to do. I mean, he came out, stabbed people with objects, stabbed people with actually with a blade that he sharpened himself. He's stabbed people with forks. He was very candid about his life behind closed doors. Like you asked, like if anyone saw the Dark Side of the Ring, they were like, "Oh, did you know blah blah blah?" He was like, "No, I was in the back getting high." Like he was very candid. He was very candid. I mean, he's one of the very few people that was a criminal on national TV and got paid for
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's definitely one way to put it, right? A lot of people they when they originally found out that New Jack passed away, there was a lot of outpouring of respect. There was a lot of outpouring of like basic respect that goes along with being a wrestling fan and when a wrestler dies.
it.
Because
Yeah.
while we don't know these people, I remember kind of explaining this when Brody Lee passed away. That was like a very sudden type of death as well. Because I would say more so because like Brody Lee was like on TV like just 2 months before, and they were still mentioning him, in weeks leading up to that. Like there's a certain level of I don't want to like it's respect, but it's also like familiarity with these wrestlers, right? Because we grow up watching them, we see them before our eyes, we see them week in and week out, and we follow their stories and we follow their lives. And in the case of New Jack, he had a Dark Side of the Ring that came out last year. A lot of people are rewatching Dark Side of the Ring leading up to the season premiere just recently, 2 weeks ago. So he was very much, I think, current in the minds of many wrestling fans. So I think that's something that a lot of people I think, and I think that's a good thing because one, we got to hear the full story of New Jack. We got to hear the full story of him and his life, and I don't know if that story would have been told had it not been for that Dark Side of the Ring. Like we wouldn't we know like the surface level stuff of New Jack, but we would not know Jerome Young, and there's a lot of people who argue Jerome Young and New Jack are the same person, right?
Almost
But
basically.
I mean, yeah, like like New Jack is one of those people. He didn't live a gimmick. The
No.
gimmick lived him. So it was very transparent. But that being said, I think that's a good thing, and I think because he was so fresh in people's minds, because people had his story told, he had his story told. I think people more so showed respect when he passed away than I think they otherwise would have. And again, this is not defending any of the terrible things New Jack did. Like nobody's perfect, right? We all messed up, and New Jack will probably be the first person to tell you that. Yeah, I got like, hey, I've messed up a bunch of times,
Yeah,
but
he was never, like I said, he was never candid about that. He came out and said, "I stole this. I stabbed this guy. I I did coke in the back while we were waiting to be called up." Like he said that. Like that was New Jack. New Jack said that on national TV in front of everybody that was watching on Dark Side of the Ring. Like he that's his life. That was him.
yeah, and again, it's one of those things where I don't think and there were some people online who did point out, things like the mass transit incident, things like, the match he had with Gypsy Joe where he basically beat up this like 75-year-old man. And it's and yeah, like again, if you judge a person by the worst thing they've ever done, depending on what that is also, then yeah, everyone's gonna be terrible. But I think, there's a time and place to discuss those things. I wouldn't say like right now is the time to discuss those things. New Jack, for better or worse, the story of professional wrestling can't be told definitely without New Jack.
No,
That is 100% true. And I'm glad he got his story got documented in Dark Side of the Ring. I'm glad that he was able to really express himself on that platform, on that biggest stage, because he hadn't been able to do that throughout his wrestling career. So that being said, rest in peace, New Jack. From Real Take Wrestle Talk, Real Take Sports, we definitely give our condolences to your family. We give
yes.
our condolences to your friends, everyone, and yeah, man.
Like, like
It's
Paul
weird.
Heyman said, heaven just gains the gangster.
Yeah, yeah,
It definitely did.
definitely did, and yeah. I mean, like I don't even know how to transition. like I was gonna think of a
Yeah.
transition, but it's weird. It's weird. Anyway, but yeah. So I'm sure we'll talk about New Jack plenty of times because there's plenty to talk about, given how many shoot interviews he's done over the years.
Exactly. Exactly.
But actually, I have one more question for you specifically, like about New Jack. Before we move on to our Backlash review, which we'll get to, what do you think New Jack's legacy is gonna be? Like, because just like if somebody asked you that, what is New Jack's legacy that now that he's gone, and what is he kind of left, and what's the impact that he's left on the wrestling scene today?
So, like you mentioned earlier, the story of wrestling cannot be told without New Jack. And it's absolutely true. Not not to discredit his wrestling ability, but he wasn't the greatest. He wasn't the greatest wrestler, and he'll sit there and tell you he wasn't the greatest wrestler. New Jack's legacy, in my opinion, would be just that. Just being as real and as gangster as he possibly could be to survive, to get through. Because New Jack was like I said, one of the first. One of the first. I mean, you had your Brian Pillmans, you had your stunning Steve Austin, you had Sabu's, you had guys that literally didn't give a fuck, but they didn't come out and say, "I don't give a fuck. Let me take this blade and stab this dude." Like that was New Jack. New Jack, literally, what he said was what he was going to do. So I believe when you look back on New Jack's legacy, his legacy would be probably to do something so messed up that you remember him for it. So shock and awe, and that shows, like you said, the mass transit incident. That shows that is very prevalent in that particular incident. So yeah, that's his legacy. Shock and awe.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely shocked me when I first saw it. I think I was like 10 when I first saw the clip of it on YouTube or something. So that, I mean, it definitely shocked me. And again, yeah, you're right. I think for better or worse, as I said, New Jack will 100% be remembered by many pro wrestling fans, especially a lot of those wrestling fans of that ECW Extreme era in wrestling. So again, rest in peace, New Jack, man. Jerome Young, gone at the age of 58. Thanks for watching this video from Real Take Sports Talk. Remember to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. Also, remember to check out our live show every single Thursday at 8 p.m. right here on the YouTube channel. And remember, keep it real.